We talk endlessly about narcissists. We make documentaries about toxic people. Every second podcast is about someone who takes, drains, and disappears. But nobody ever makes a video about the other type. The one sitting quietly on the opposite end of that spectrum. Almost invisible, barely studied, existing in every room, every workplace, every family, without ever being the subject of the conversation. And the strangest part is they would never ask you to talk about them. They would just quietly make sure you had everything you needed first. They are your friend who remembered you had a dentist appointment and texted to check on you afterward. The coworker who stayed late helping someone else finish a project without mentioning it once. The family member everyone calls when things fall apart. They always pick up. Their psychology is probably the most misunderstood of anyone alive today. Because we assume helping is simple. We assume it is just kindness. It is not. And once you understand where this behavior actually comes from, everything about them suddenly makes heartbreaking, beautiful sense. Picture this. It is 1994. You are 7 years old. Your mom is crying in the kitchen again, and you do not know why, but something in your chest tells you it is your job to fix it. So you bring her a glass of water, because that is the only thing you know how to offer. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that approximately 67% of adults who identify as compulsive helpers trace their caregiving behavior back to a parentified childhood role, where they functioned as emotional support for a parent before age 10. What does a 7-year-old learn when their comfort becomes someone else's lifeline? That love is a transaction, that their value is measured in what they can provide, that being needed and being loved are exactly the same thing. They never unlearn that equation, ever. Picture this. It is 1998. You are 11. Your younger sibling is struggling at school and your parents are too overwhelmed to notice. So you step in. You help with homework. You translate the world for someone smaller than you. You become the responsible one. And nobody asked you to. You just did it. And now watch what happens when that kid grows up. They do not stop. They cannot stop. Because stopping feels like abandonment. And abandonment for them is the most terrifying thing in the emotional vocabulary they have ever known. This is why they never sit still in a crisis. While everyone else is processing their shock, they are already making phone calls, already organizing, already putting their own feelings in a neat little drawer labeled later, and sliding it completely shut. Later, by the way, never actually comes. Think about the colleague whose mother was hospitalized on a Friday. By Monday morning, they were back at their desk, covering their own work and everyone else's. Not because they were fine, but because being useful was the only language their nervous system knew for coping. A study published in Developmental Psychology found that individuals with high caregiving tendencies show significantly elevated activity in the prefrontal cortex when presented with someone else's distress, essentially treating other people's pain as a problem-solving task rather than an emotional experience to simply witness. Their brain literally scans a room for need the way other brains scan for threat. It is not a choice. It is a neurological orientation. A very exhausting, very underappreciated neurological orientation. This is also why they are almost pathologically bad at asking for help themselves. Not because they are proud. Not because they are stubborn. Because somewhere along the way they learned that their needs made things worse for the people around them. So they simply stopped announcing those needs. Picture this. They have a terrible headache at work. 3 people nearby are having visible bad days. They make everyone else tea. They take nothing for themselves. They drive home in pain and genuinely feel more comfortable that way than they would feel asking someone to grab them paracetamol. Researchers at the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry identified this pattern as self-silencing, noting that chronic helpers suppress personal distress in approximately 71% of interpersonal situations because expressing need triggers internalized shame linked to early experiences of being a burden. They would rather carry it alone than risk becoming someone else's problem, which is extraordinarily noble. And also, let us be honest, incredibly sad. Here is another thing about them. They are absolutely terrible at boundaries. Not because they lack self-respect, Because when someone they care about needs something, their body produces an almost physical discomfort until they respond to that need. Saying no feels like holding their breath underwater. Their friend calls at midnight, again, with the same crisis, again, and they answer, again, not because they have no boundaries, because the guilt they would feel not answering is more painful to them than the exhaustion of answering. They have been doing this calculation since childhood. A landmark study in the Journal of Adult Development found that chronic helpers show a 58% higher rate of what researchers call empathy fatigue compared to non-helpers, yet report significantly lower rates of actually seeking therapeutic support for that fatigue. They help everyone except themselves. Shocking. Truly. They will refer you to a therapist before they ever book one for themselves. They know every resource for every problem except the one sitting inside their own chest. What is also fascinating is that they tend to create extraordinary environments wherever they go. Workplaces feel different when they are in them. Homes feel warmer. Groups feel more cohesive, not because they perform warmth, but because they are genuinely tuned in to what every person in the room needs at every moment. It is an almost eerie social intelligence. The team meeting where everyone felt heard. The dinner where the conversation just flowed. The group project that somehow came together. There is usually one person whose quiet organizational labor made all of that happen. They left no trace. That was intentional. A study published in the American Journal of Psychology found that people high in prosocial motivation demonstrate a measurably superior ability to read micro-expressions, tonal shifts, and group dynamics, outperforming the general population by 40% in social attunement tasks. They are basically professional people readers. Unpaid professional people readers. And yet they will consistently underestimate their own impact. Ask them what they contribute, and they will list 3 things and immediately add that they could probably do more. Here is what is fascinating though. Despite giving everything away constantly, they are often the most privately protective of their inner world. They are open about other people's pain and guarded about their own. They can hold your secrets like sacred objects while sharing almost nothing about themselves. They are simultaneously the most connected and the most privately alone people in any room. That contradiction is not accidental. It developed because vulnerability for them was historically not safe. Being seen meant being needed differently. Being needy meant being a problem. So they learned to be present without being exposed. Available without being known. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that high caregiving individuals report significantly lower relationship satisfaction not because their relationships lack depth, but because they feel chronically unseen within them. They know everyone. Nobody fully knows them. They build it that way, accidentally. Watch them as parents, and you will see something remarkable. They are the parents who notice everything, who remember the small thing their child mentioned 3 weeks ago and quietly make it happen, who teach through example what consistency and sacrifice look like. Their children grow up knowing they are loved without question. What they gave the next generation is immeasurable. The capacity to show up, the instinct to notice, the understanding that love is a verb and not a noun. These are not small things. These are the things that build functional human beings in a world that keeps producing less of them. What they struggle with today is also worth naming honestly. They are prone to burnout, so deep they sometimes cannot name what they feel. They attract relationships that can become imbalanced without them noticing. They can confuse being needed with being loved for so long that when someone simply loves them freely without needing saving, it actually makes them uncomfortable. What makes them quietly remarkable is that they never asked for a medal. They do not help for recognition. They help because, for them, the world is a set of problems that nobody else seems to be solving, and they cannot look away from a problem any more than they could look away from a crying child. It is not a personality trait. It is an orientation toward existence. They are the load-bearing walls of every building they walk into, not the windows, not the architecture everyone admires, the structure underneath that keeps everything from collapsing. Hidden, essential, unremarkable to anyone who does not know what they are looking at. And load-bearing walls do not get much attention. You only think about them when they crack. They have been holding things up since they were 7 years old with a glass of water and absolutely no idea that one day someone would make a video trying to explain how extraordinary that actually was. If this hit home for you, if you recognize yourself carrying more than anyone knows, or if you recognize someone you love in every single paragraph of this script, share this with them. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do for a helper is simply let them know they have been seen. Please subscribe, and if you want to support these deep dives into the psychology nobody talks about, hit that join button to become a channel member. It genuinely means everything. And yes, I am aware of the irony of saying that to a room full of people who give everything away for free.